Okay.
All right, so we're rolling. By the way, this session will be recorded and posted on YouTube, so that means that anybody can leave now. All right, I'm going to get started now because I got a lot of cool stuff to go over today, and it is 9:42, so we're starting 3 minutes ahead of time. Thank you all for coming. This is a slightly smaller room than I anticipated. I did tell them I might attract a few people to this session, but I'm really glad, like I mentioned earlier, that I'm not the only one speaking about flipping the classroom. So I hope that the other people who are presenting get just as good turnout as well. So without further ado, I'm going to get started and kind of go over like this entire phenomena about flipping the classroom. So first off, I want to see a raise of hands. Like anybody here have seen me speak or know stuff like about me before? All right, so a few people. Rest of it, huh? Many times. Okay, you're a many timer. Wonderful.
I'm
passing out a sign-up sheet that's going around somewhere. Where is it right now? Basically, put your email on it, and I'll send you an email to the link and the other resources that I may cover. If I can't cover everything, then I'll get that information out to you. It's a really great, fascinating arena. So we're going to be talking about the how, the why, the what. I kind of went around in wrong order. And basically go over like free online tools, because the beauty about flipping in class is that a majority of the things that we can do is free. And as educators, we're strapped with cash. We're trying to do a million things with $1, and a lot of these things are free. Unfortunately, on the flip side, when things are free, flipping the classroom flip side. Free involves time. So the thing is, you sacrifice your time to be able to make these things happen. So we're going to talk about online accountability, student mastery, and also game theory as well in this session. So to start out with, let's go ahead and ask a very basic and simple question: why do we want to flip the class? Why? Anybody? Anybody? You.
Lecture at home, project at school.
Great. That's one of the key reasons, is to dispense with the fact of giving the kids information so that you're spending your time taking them to the next level with projects, with activities, with labs. That's the biggest reason, because with today's technology, the information's out there. The information's in many different forms. So why waste the time to do that in a classroom situation? This is one of the biggest statements, is that the textbooks of yesterday don't fit with the students of tomorrow. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we're moving to the flip model, because we send the kids home with textbooks, and do they actually open it up and engage with that material? No, I see a lot of head shakes. So absolutely. So it doesn't work. This is a broken system, and we're still perpetuating it. But with technology, we're able to transcend that and go to the next level. So I want to go over one reason, just kind of a little bit about me, why I'm so passionate about it. Because you're looking at me, I'm just a young kid, right? What am I here to tell you guys, seasoned veteran teachers, about why this is very important? So for me, first off, I want to start out with I was made in Taiwan. Yes, indeed. Got the sticker to prove it. No. No, but this is a very important reason, because I'm not a native, to say the least. Also, with that, when I was ripened at the age of 2, it takes 2 years to ripen. Then I was exported here to the United States. That's what they do in Taiwan, they export everything. So, but the thing is, the key is that coming over here, I grew up in a Chinese restaurant, so it was a very hard life, very disadvantaged because we came over here with nothing, and then we do all Chinese people do, start a restaurant, right? Even though my dad had a college degree in business, but that's one of the things you had to do. So I spent my entire childhood and youth in a restaurant. So one of the things that led up to that is I had reading deficiencies. I'm English as a second language, so Chinese was my first language. I had to spend 2 solid years in speech class to be able to speak English properly. I think they did a great job at that, didn't they? Yes. But the thing is, like, but that still left me scarred. I still had problems reading the English language. So another problem is that I also had ADHD. But I was never diagnosed it because we were so poor we couldn't go to. Alright, now the reason I bring this up is because that actually turned out to be the biggest benefit of my life. I had to learn to deal with this and cope with it. And I turned my greatest deficiency into my strongest asset. I have the ability to take on information in multiple forms and multiple paths all at once, because I wasn't trained to stay on that straight and narrow. Now, why that's important is because, in the education system, we're trying to get them all to focus, but all the kids have this problem now. Back then, it was spotty, so this is why it's important, because we need to gear ourselves to be able to handle a multi-dimensional brain, not just a single-track mind. It's a benefit, because they can do so much more. And we're limiting them by putting the information in one track. And they want to go, oh, I want to go here, I want to go here, I want to go here. Getting them to focus is good, but getting them on the track so they can do a million things is best. And because I was attention deprived, I love video games. I gravitated towards that, so I'm a huge video gamer, which also influenced a lot of like why I do what I do. So then then got interested in computers, programming, and then which led me to where am I today? Digital learning and education. Okay, so the traditional classroom, I didn't fit that model. I was not the typical classroom type of kid. I fell asleep all the time. I was disengaged. I was not the normal Chinese kid. Thanks, Nick. I actually failed a math class. Oh my God! Unheard of. Okay. All right, but because of that, I struggled. I didn't do very well in school, because the school was crafted for a specific factory model system. And I had to gravitate towards career tech ed, computers, and all these things. But so back then, the things I was struggling with is a commonplace now today. All right. So kids are used to this nowadays. I'm going to go here, and then flip to this. Oh, why is the sound working? I didn't test that out. I probably should have tested that out prior to starting. You got a sound guy here? No. Is there a control? Oh well, I'll just go on speakers.
He was a Boy Scout.
So the funny thing, I was not actually. Hopefully you'll all be able to hear this even as it's going. That's very cute.
They don't have a microphone. No.
All right, so backing up. Just go ahead and turn this. Yeah, totally ruined my moment.
Okay, we're going to stick this in here, and then I'm going to pour in the milk. I hope this works because I didn't bring a change of pants.
I googled it. It's a fake picture. That's it. No cake for you. Anyone else want to join the no cake club?
Just kidding, boys and girls. Everyone gets cake.
All right, so that just underscores what kids are used to now. They have information right at their fingertips. They have it in the palm. We all have the information right in our hip pocket, for the most part. And we need to be able to embrace that, because that's what they're used to. They're used to going, oh, I don't know something, look it up. remember back in the good old days when you had to go through the art catalog, or if you were looking for that one particular article, you had to go over to the microfiche stack and pull it out and scan through all the articles and go, darn, I just wasted an hour, I got the wrong article. Start over again. Yes, I do know that. No, so the thing is, like, we had to work hard to get to the information. Now, it's all right there. We don't have to work hard for that information anymore. And that's what kids expect. They want to be able to get to the information quick, fast, and right when they need it. So, anybody feel this way with the current paperwork and all the things you have to do? No, we're going to get rid of all the paper, but you can also illustrate that this is the technology that's being piled on you as well. So we all feel this way because we're all being forced to say, hey, you need to incorporate more technology in your classroom. What does that mean? Okay. So you feel like, so instead of like papers, there just could be like a big pile of iPads or laptops or whatever you're trying to incorporate. And the difficult thing is, like, we're being forced to change at such a rate that it would take normally a lifetime to be able to do. And we're expected to do that. And that's the difficult thing. But as technology advances, things get easier and easier. So that's the bright side of things. Like the iPhone. The iPhone is easy to use. Now, if they made it complicated, no one would use it. So technology is heading down that same exact path. Okay, so I'm going to show you this video of a math teacher. I don't know if any of you have seen this before, but it's a really great description of why this individual flipped her class.
I've been teaching math for the last 5 years, and this is why I flipped my classroom.
Okay, one here. Can you guys hear in the back? All right.
This is what my classroom used to look like. I was teaching to the middle group of the class, the students that could follow along with what we were doing, and we were going through the content, while I had a group of higher level students, not challenged, bored with the information, ready to move forward. And I had a struggling group of students that were not receiving enough effective remediation. They didn't have the basic content they needed to be working on the content we were currently covering, or they needed more help in order to be successful. This led to a 90% use of class time being spent on delivery and review of content. 90% of the time I was at the front of the classroom lecturing to a group of students, and I wasn't meeting all of their needs. 10% of class time was actually spent on application, which led to, depending on students, to do the application needed to be successful. They had to go home or outside of class and work on applying the concepts that I was giving out in class. This constant battle of not reaching the needs of all students and feeling the need to differentiate for all of my learners allows teachers to feel overwhelmed and ineffective, because we see the need for differentiation, but there's just not enough time for effective differentiation. This called for a drastic change in how we teach. This is where flipping the classroom comes in. Now the students outside of class preload the content. They get the information they're going to need for class. They can pause, rewind, and rewatch the videos as many times as they need to. They can post questions online to their classmates or to the teacher. And it's a self-paced program where they can be remediated by going back and reviewing former topics, or they can work ahead when they've already mastered a concept and are ready to look forward. They get the content here before class, so that when they come into class, my whole classroom has now shifted, where I'm at the center of the class, working between these differentiated groups, focused on different pieces of application. I can now work between each of these groups that are moving at their own pace. This has created a 90% use of class time spent on application of the content, and 10% of class time is spent on delivery of content, when I can answer questions that have been posted or take any other questions that have come up from applying the content. Now in my classroom, all students are engaged and challenged. I have time to work with each group, give them individualized time and instruction as they need, and I can actually work between each of the groups to provide effective differentiation for all my varied groups of learners. My struggling students, my middle group of learners, and I can now extend and expand on my higher level students' prior knowledge and challenge them in the classroom.
All right, thank you, Katie. That's that's her name, by the way. That's a very, I mean, that's probably one of the best descriptions that I found online of like, you know, why and how they flip the classroom. All right, session's over. Okay. So does this all make sense, right? It makes total sense. And that's you know, like what she mentioned earlier. You know, we want to give more time, and time is precious. Face time with our students is precious. We don't want to relay the information where we can do it in other methods. Okay, so in order to flip the class, you have to really, be the right kind of instructor. It doesn't fit everybody, unfortunately. And it's something that you have to think to yourself, you know, is this something that I can do? You know, besides the technology, it's also a personal attitude. So you got to think about it, like, you know, are you the type of teacher who is the Lord by the board? I say everything and everything goes and nothing else you know, can come from anywhere else. There's still some teachers who are like that, and they're not the ones who are best fit for the flip model because they have to change, and unfortunately that's not going to happen. All right, so the preferable model is the guide by your side. You know, so we're changing our roles. Our roles isn't the ones who are dispensing the information to our students. We're there to help guide them. The information is there. We're helping to guide them on the right path, get them to the information, help them understand, and be able to apply that knowledge. You know, do you employ differentiated instruction? You know, because that's a critical part. You have to be able to manage people at multiple levels sometimes. You know, the pacing structure of education eventually will go by the wayside as we go towards competency-based learning. So are you capable of employing multimodalities of learning? That just means that, you know, providing the information in many different forms. So if a kid is great at reading the text, then they have the text. If they're only good at reading the summarize and going to application, then they have that ability to learn as well. If they're only great at lectures, then you provide them a lecture video. But you gotta give them multiple ways to be able to approach the information, and that's one of the bigger challenges because the beauty of technology is that we give them and we do allow them that kind of choice. You know, we're only one teacher, so we can only usually dispense it one way. We can't be there for every single student, but technology kind of supplements that. All right, so are you a person who can use technology as a tool? Because that is a very large part of this component. You know, I know that the technology quotient of each individual is increasing over time, and if you have a friend or a colleague who's doing it, hit them up because they're probably more than happy to help out because they're ones who want to perpetuate that. So don't be afraid to ask your colleague and say, hey, I'm trying to do this Prezi thing and I need a little bit of help. Or actually, better yet, ask the kids, right? The kids will love it, and that gives them more pride because they're self-actuated learners and they're actually contributing something to the class rather than being just recipient. All right, so this illustration is something that I like to point out about the video game generation, and this kind of speaks to how the kids learn. So you got to think about it this way. You know, back in the day, you know, we had television. We still have television, but television was primarily one of the only forms of entertainment for kids. So we had iconic characters such as Felix the Cat, Smurf, SpongeBob, and Mickey Mouse. So these characters are the people that kids identify with, or part of your generation in a way. So you identify with these characters, you watch them, you get entertained, they do like different funny things, you laugh, and you're learning through what I call passive entertainment. So you're sitting there in front of the booth tube and you're just absorbing the information. And that lends itself to the style of education that fits that model of time because you're used to that. But nowadays, we have video games. So, you know, kids are growing up with these iconic characters: Sonic the Hedgehog, Mario, Link, and Solid Snake for those Metal Gear Solid fans out there. So, but the difference is, instead of being a passively entertained, you're active. You're engaged in these avatars. You're making them move. You're making them jump. You make them jump down a hole, you die. Okay, well, I'm not going to do that again. You make them go and jump on top of a turtle instead. So they're actively engaged in deciding the destinies of these characters. So these kids are used to controlling the environment. And when they enter to the school environment, all that goes away. So this is the kind of generation we're growing up with in the schools today. And we need to be able to adapt to a model of education where they have control, they have choice, and then they can do it as many times as they need. Heck, I know kids, and I know people myself, and actually including myself, where I would play a level like 50 times just to get it perfect. Talk about mastery. Because I was determined, I was challenged, and I'm like, I gotta get that right. I gotta get that right. So now I know it like the back of my hand, and now I have another useless skill. But the thing is, like, you gotta take that, to the next level. So flipping the classroom was made popular by this movement, the Khan Academy. Anybody here heard of Khan Academy? I hope a lot of you have. Khan Academy a few years ago started, or Salman Khan a few years ago started putting these like math videos online. Oh, math videos online. What a novel concept. Well, actually, but the way that he applied it was really what kicked it into the next level. Where then teachers started using it as another source of information. And it was picked up by the media and made popular. Now we love it when the media picks up education stories in a positive spin, right? So for me, I think that's great that Khan Academy brought that entire notion to popularity. And now, today we have like 5 or 6 sessions at this conference. It's becoming more popular, and it's just going to continue to grow. But to me, flipping is no more than homework 2.0. In the past, you sent kids home with books, and you expected them to read it and come to class prepared. Nowadays, we send them with books, you expect them to read it, and they come to class unprepared. And the thing is, we already knew that's going to happen. So we're kind of just like letting it go and spending more time in the lecture. So the reason why it's engaging now is because now we're engaging them in the technology and the tools that they're used to. So we're getting kids to do homework again. Yippee! Right? and they can do it for multimodalities. Okay, so let's go to what do we need to be able to make this successful. All right, first thing we need is content. We need content in a digital fashion, okay? So, you have PowerPoints, right? You got all those lecture slides and things like that. That's a good start. You got documents like, Word documents and information in that form. PDFs, websites, and I don't know if anyone else has tapped into this, OER content, Open Educational Resources. Basically, these are hosted by universities, and they're basically fashioned with a Creative Commons license where you could use it online, download it, do whatever you want with it. It's content that other people have produced and said, hey, go ahead and use it freely, and look at that kind of stuff. Websites, there's a lot of information on the web that's really, really great, and you can definitely tap into that as well. I might even be inclined to say Wikipedia is a good source of information for the start. But the thing is, like, the information is available. So you need good content. The content's important so that you could drive it toward it. A lot of people also create their own content, such as recording your own lectures, using lecture capture, which I'm going to go over in a minute. But like, the way that you think about it is like, hey, if I have to do it once, record it so that then I don't have to do it again. And the great thing about technology is now we have things like this in our pocket where we can just quickly record something. You don't have to become a Hollywood producer and use like all these programs. Just say boom, boom, boom. There's even basic edit tools on these devices, and then you say, okay, good, post it on YouTube, post it on some server or something like that. They're all over the place. They're free. And then once you're done, you're done. And you can revisit it again later if the application changes, which most of the time it doesn't. So that's how it got started. Yes, let's pick up the phone. All right, so the next thing we need is devices, okay? Devices are important. In order for the flipped classroom concept to work, thanks for the musical interlude. Now I need to locate where my water is. Oh, there it is. Okay. So the kids need to have the ability to access computers, home and at school. Mobile technology is starting to really take off. Like, if kids don't have, most kids, especially the free and reduced population, they don't have computers. They don't even have internet, but they have smartphones, right? Yeah, and tablets too. How many grade schoolers do you know with the Kindle Fire? A whole lot, and they're playing Angry Birds on it, so they're already have it. So the importance of this is that, years ago we had technology inequity, meaning that some kids had it, some kids didn't, and that really was what prevented a lot of this to be able to take off. But that is narrowing and narrowing and narrowing, and then you can supplement that inequity by providing really cheap and expensive devices. Anybody here heard of the BYOD movement? Yes, you did. All right. Yeah, BYOD. It's great. Bring your own device. Although we could turn it into a B, but that won't work. So the beauty of that is schools are starting to embrace that. Before we were restricting kids, saying no, don't bring cell phones, don't bring iPods, don't bring your own stuff, because we have to control the environment. But the schools that have embraced this, there's numerous articles about this. The kids are just taking off and doing wonderful things. As long as you have direct application for that device, okay? You can't just bring it for bringing its sake. If they're using it constructively, they're not using it destructively. So, so they have a lot of them. So just, if you guys currently aren't embracing that, it'll come, and you just got to convince the superintendent that it's important to be able to do that. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little story. This is the story I heard from Bill Daggett at the Model Schools Conference. Anybody here heard of Bill Daggett, International Center for Leadership and Education? That was a mouthful. But basically, he told us a really poignant story that kind of illustrates and it goes into what we're facing today. Back in the Great Depression, not the current one, the other one. Before that, schools provided pencils for every single student. So when a student comes into class, they open their desk drawer, and then either the teacher passes out the pencils to them at that time, or they have it in their station. So everyone had a pencil, and everyone used that pencil, and when they're done, they put it back in its proper spot. Then the Depression happened, and then they were faced with this big economic problem. They can't provide pencils for every single student anymore. So this, they had this idea. What if we allowed students to take their own pencils from home? Everybody's got a pencil from home, right? So let's let them bring their own pencils. Then the education community went, uproar! I'm like, no, we can't do that, because we're trying to control that pencil, Because the problem is if you don't control it, they might write on the walls. They might use it destructively like that. They might use it to pass notes in inappropriate times, right? Ooh, boy, that's bad. Or worse, they might poke each other in the eye. So these were just some really funny illustrations of how people are resistant to change, and that's the same thing with devices. We can't write on walls, but pass notes. But the thing is, you can see that you can write on your Facebook wall. That's right. That's a good point. I'll have to use that next time. Yeah, but poke in the eye. Can you think of something like that? But the point is the absurdity of it kind of correlates with the kind of resistance that we have with these mobile devices. These are powerful. These are mini computers that are more powerful than computers that were only a decade ago. Full gigantic PCs. In a lot of cases, more powerful than that because if they're connected. Those PCs weren't connected, and we should use those tools. Oh yeah, and the last thing, they can cause distractions. Okay, so that brings on the point is you need to have access. Internet infrastructure in the school is vitally important. Fortunately, over the years I've seen that has been mitigated in a large part of a lot of spending has been made in infrastructure improvements, and so this isn't as big of a problem anymore. Although there's still some times where you're like, oh, it's so slow, but the thing is, you also got to think about access, not just at the school, but at home. If a kid doesn't have access at home, there's also alternatives, such as McDonald's, Starbucks. Most fast food restaurants have free access. And if a kid's determined, and if they're self-actuated learners, they'll pursue that and find the avenues to be able to learn the material. Okay, and the other thing is you need online tools. And the best part is, the vast majority of them are free. Okay? All right, so let's go over this because, when we think about technology, we think about online tools, and many of us feel like we're in this particular situation. Okay.
Ma, calm down. Listen to me. I know it says click with the mouse, but on a laptop, the trackpad is the mouse. Now, put your finger on it. It doesn't matter which finger. Good choice. Now move it down to your email icon. The little envelope. What do you mean, what does it look like? It looks like an envelope. Don't let the computer, don't use it. Sure, we can exchange it for a salad spinner. Goodbye.
Anybody here think I like Big Bang Theory? Love that show. So yeah, I mean, there's you know, technology. You know, we all come from different angles, and yeah, you know, I've been on that end of the phone, and I know people who've been on the receiving end of that phone call, and the thing is, like, you know, and we're all trying to work through it, and we can help each other out to get there. Okay, so let's talk about the how. Okay, let's see how am I doing on time. Oh, cool. I'm supposed to stop at 10:45. Oh, cool. Right on time. Good. All right, great. So how do we do it? So this will be we're gonna the primer was the beginning entertaining portion. This is the boring part. No, it's not. All right. So we have 4 categories of how. So we have, like, you know, project management tools. There's tools online to help you organize projects. I'm going to show you one of them. Then there's content management tools. Then there's learning management tools. And then there's content creation tools that are out there. So those are 4 categories of tools that you use to be able to create the flipped environment. So let's start out with project management. So I'm going to show you one that's really awesome and that I personally love, and it's absolutely free. And I'll let you see this and what you think. So what you think about this?
If you've ever had to coordinate a team of people working on multiple projects, you know that the hardest part is keeping track of where everyone is up to and what everyone is working on. That's what Trello helps you see instantly at a glance.
And by the way, Trello is actually a corporate project management tool, but it can be easily applied to educators. In fact, a lot of educators have applied it, which is great.
This is Trello. Trello is really simple. It's just a bunch of lists, and each list has on it multiple cards. And each card is one of the little projects that your team is working on. On the right-hand side, you see a bunch of images here. Those are all the people on this team, and they all have access to this board. And this particular team is a company called Artist Exploitation Incorporated. What they do is find young garage bands on YouTube and then give them an extreme makeover and then an exploitative recording contract. So on the left-hand side, we have the new bands that we've just found on YouTube, and when we find a new one, all we have to do is click Add Card and type in the name of whoever we found on there. Each of these cards has a bunch of stuff on the back of it, which you get to just by clicking on the card. This one has some voting, as you can see. There's a bunch of conversation, like a little chat here, and of course you can upload and embed things. So there's an uploaded YouTube video of the band live in work. The first thing that we're going to do on this team is pick the top ranked bands. Everybody votes on the ones that they like, and the ones that are best, we're going to actually do live in-person auditions. And so we're just going to drag over some of those cards into the audition column in order to choose the ones that need an audition, and then I'm going to assign people to them. So I'm going to assign, Lena will be in charge of My Little Brother, and Tyler is Canadian, so you can do Girlfriend in Canada, and Justin's going to do Sedate Dilemma. And I really like that Sedate Dilemma band, and it got a lot of votes, so I'm going to drag it up to the top here, so we work on that one first. By the way, this stuff is all happening in a web browser over the internet, and everything is instantly synchronized as you make changes. So whatever changes I make here will immediately show up in all other browsers, everywhere else on the internet. And so people can just keep a copy of this open on their desktop and immediately see what's going on with their team as the changes are made. They'll immediately reflect on there. All right, so Justin goes in, he does an audition of the Sedate Dilemma band. He thinks they're really awesome. We're going to sign them up, and we send them over to the makeover department just by dragging them over here. And I'm going to assign our makeover artist, Michael, to work on that. Michael is going to actually just draw a little image of what he thinks the band should look like. There's his drawing, and upload this to the back of the card where everybody can see it. There we go. And finally, he's going to send it over to the final review process when he's done. And I'm in charge of all the final reviews, so I'm going to assign myself to that card. And when I look at this band, there's a couple of changes that I want to make. So I'm going to add a checklist here of all the things that I want to change. First of all, I think it should be a little bit more glam. Secondly, I want to somehow find a way to exploit the teenage girl's love for vampires and Twilight and everything to do with that whole thing. And third, more cowbell. Once I've added my checklist, I'm just going to take this card and send it back to the recovery department where Michael's going to go in there and make these changes that I've asked for. He's already got a picture that has a slightly more glam version. And then he can check that off. For capitalizing on Twilight, he's just going to propose a different name for the band. That should do that. And the cowbell we can always add in post-production. No problem. So he sends it to me for final review, and I love it. And I just drag it over to the record first album column, where we assign our recording engineer, John, to work on that. Now, everything about this process is completely reconfigurable at will. So, for example, if we decide that this band has to wait another year to get a little bit older, we can make a new list for bands that are waiting to get older. There we go, and we can drag it over there and wait. It's a very simple process by which anybody can keep track of everything that's going on easily. Let me show you a couple of other simple Trello boards.
All right, so anybody can you see any application of this in the classroom? Yeah. What I love about it, it's easy. Doesn't it? Yeah, that's the thing. I've worked with like many different project management tools online where you have to type in these fields and click check. I'm like, yeah, well, why can't it be easy? So when I encountered this, and the best part is it's free, other ones you have to pay for. It's awesome.
Does
Yes.
that mean you add the members like yourself, like you would add your students, or
Yeah.
say yourself?
Well, you would invite them by typing in their email address,
Oh,
and then
okay.
they would be able to access it. You can set it to private, you can set it to public. There's a lot of different things. You can have multiple ones, one for each class. There's a lot of different ways to manage it. And it's very easy to use. So yes, you have a question. Okay, you had a question.
Is this tutorial?
Oh yeah, this is online. Just Google Trello, and then go to YouTube and watch Trello. And there's actually quite a few videos about Trello. And this is actually a year old. They've actually done more stuff to it to make it even better. But this is still the best demonstration of the basics of what it is. Yes?
Yes, does it have a free version with limitations and the paid versions with?
No, absolutely free, unlimited. You can do whatever the heck you want with it. So there is no limitations. Oh wait, but they do have a pro version if you want to. They just started a pro version. I can't remember what it does because I just recently saw it, so I haven't looked at it. But there's really no limitation with the free version. I think the pro version allows you to integrate like enterprise software solutions or things that we really don't care about, you know, and things like that. So, by the way, before I forget, here's some business cards in case anybody wants to look at how shiny it is. Oh, where's the sign-up sheet? Where's the sign-up sheet? Oh, it's back there? All right, so it needs to make its way back up front. Okay, so that's Trello. It's really awesome. It's really easy to use. Just go to it and just start. So one of the best things to do over summer is to make your own to-do list and start, creating these categories. So use it in your own personal life. Or what you can do is you can make a to-do list for your spouse. Why isn't this in the accomplishment column? Not married, are you? Money. Okay, there we go. Okay, so there's Trello, and then so that's a really awesome project management tool. That is really the only one that I've encountered that's really worth it. And okay, so let's see here. We're at Trello. There we go. Okay, so now we're going into another category with learning management. So anybody here use learning management tools currently in your classroom? All right, I see a good handful of you. Good. Just an example. Okay, well, let me just go over the big ones. Blackboard. Anybody use Blackboard here? Okay, a few of you. Primarily used in the post-secondary arena. So are you post-secondary or CT? CT. Okay, CT. Moodle. Any Moodlers? All right. Anybody use Edmodo as a tool? All right, great. It's a wonderful social media tool. Anything else that has not been represented here? Anybody?
My Big Campus?
My Big Campus is one, yes. That one's a paid for one though, right?
No, it's free.
Oh, that one's a free one? Okay. Oh yeah, Blackboard is paid for, but they have like the things that like make it free. But I'm only mentioning this because it's one of the ones that a lot of schools. I'm not saying that this is free, I'm just saying this is one of the ones that a lot of people use. Yes?
Study Island.
Study Island? Okay, Study Island is one that has been around and doing various things. Okay, so, huh? Angel? Yeah, Angel's one. There's a lot of learning management systems out there. There's also another one called Canvas that's out there, and there's, but the ones that, the ones I've listed up here are the most popular ones, like Edmodo, like, you know, a lot of people rose their hands with Edmodo. And then there's this really obscure one called KP Compass, which I'll kind of go over a little bit. So, but the thing is, like, you know, the Moodle is a good learning management system as far as if you want to get kids involved with an online system. But who here has had difficulty working with Moodle? Yeah, Moodlers, anyway, yeah. A little bit, yeah. So the thing with Moodle is that it's a free tool, but you have to be fairly computer savvy to be able to use it effectively. You can use it on a very most basic form, but it has its quirks. One of the big points is like, you know, Moodle tries to do everything, but they try to do everything mediocrely. Not knocking them, but one of the reasons why I put this up here is because this is what I do personally. I'm trying to advance the learning structure within education, and I have this free tool called KP Compass. Now, I'm only going to spend a couple minutes kind of describing this to you, but I want to show you how I reimagine, based on all the stuff I told you prior, that kids should learn online. So let's go over here to here. Okay, so the way that I think of learning online is providing information to the kids in a very easy, simple manner. You know, fast, quick, and easy. You know, so that's one of the big focuses. Another focus is to provide relevancy with instant feedback on assessments, to be able to give them reinforcement through that. And the third, make it easy for teachers to get the right kind of reports for what they need. So this is something that I created called KP Compass. And our team focuses on those three key aspects, just getting them to learn and master the information. So very first thing we do is we go by competency-based learning. So this is what we would call a learning module. So this learning module is all about food safety. So within this module, we have information about food safety right in here. So the way you think about it is like each of these topics is what we call a concept or a knowledge nugget. So you put this information in as concept form. Now the importance of that is that you're putting the information in, and it could be anything. It could be a video, it could be text, it could be a slide presentation, whatever it is. But you're breaking things down into little concepts so that could be tracked and the students can give feedback. Okay, so the entire emphasis is you give them this batch of information and the students go through this information to learn it. The easiest way to kind of explain this process is the system has become, or is becoming, the student's personal tutor. So the personal tutor can provide personalized instruction for the student. So by doing that, well, we have information. So you say to the tutor, okay, I'm going to give this information to you, and I'm going to send my students to you. So the tutor will say, okay, I've got all this information, I'm going to give it to your kids, and then they're going to learn it. So the kids go through that information, doesn't matter what the information is, so on and so forth. Then at the bottom, they have the opportunity for a knowledge check. So we call the button a check your knowledge. We're trying to get away from classical terminology, such as a test or a quiz, because it always has negative connotations to it, and it creates anxiety, and it's not the kind of result we want. All we want them to do is kind of like in a video game. They make it to a checkpoint. They check their knowledge. So they hit that button, and they get taken to a test, okay? Yeah, they get taken to a test, okay? But the thing is, like, you know, it's a different mental process when they go down this route. So here's the test. Oh, wait, did I forget to turn on the internet? Oh, no, the internet's on. Oh, wait, I forgot to check the, yeah, right now we're live, and I don't have the internet here. Oops. Yeah, when I ran in here, I failed to check this part really quick. So, oh, yeah. Sorry about this.
Yeah, you started 3 minutes early, you got 3 minutes right.
All right. Wonderful.
You have questions up?
Oh, cool. That's coming. Anyway. All right, so let's angle this and get the internet gods to work. Well, I had it stuck in the bottom of my bag.
Can I ask you a question while
Yes.
you're waiting for those internet guides? Are these modules already there, or is this something the teacher or students can create and put there?
They can create and put there.
Okay, so the units aren't already in there?
No, except for in 3 specific categories: culinary arts, food science, and foods and nutrition. That's how but just kind of give you a little background. Huh? Yeah, yeah. So the reason why I was able to create this platform, because a lot of people create platforms and they think it's going to work well. I've actually had content, and I had the sandbox for the past 15 years of experimenting with my teachers who are using it and trying to come up with the best models for learning for them. So because I've had the sandbox and the ability to have my own content, I've been able to create a what we call a content agnostic system that's really effective on reaching CTE kids. The problem with all these other tools is that they're devised for academics, and they can't transition to a CTE structure, where this structure can actually be transitioned back to a core structure of education. So, all right. So anyway, this test is being popped up, and it's almost loaded. But anyway, they get taken to the test. I mean, nothing about that. So the key is, like, when they're taken to this test, they're given feedback. Okay, so the tutor will say to the student, okay, I'm going to give you a series of questions, and these are just kind of random questions I threw in here. And then the tutor will say, okay, based on your response, I'm going to tell you what level of knowledge mastery you are on each concept. So all these questions are derived from all the concepts found within the structure. Anybody have an iPhone Lightning cable on them? Yeah, Lightning? Yeah. You do? Wonderful. Okay, no. I left that at my table back downstairs, and now I'm without. Oh, there's one. It's a Lightning?
Yeah.
All right. Because I realized when I checked this room out, Verizon's not very strong here, while AT&T is. So I'm going to plug in my AT&T hotspot.
That's an ADHD kid.
All right. So now that I'm going to that news source. So yes.
I was trying to, so based on these, how you said, like, you can basically create however many, like, spots you want. You can put notes there, you can put things you want them to know, so it's your creation.
Yeah, your creation.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm showing.
Can you upload images very easily to
Yes, 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 yes. All right, so let's go ahead.
And then is there content that other, say, science teachers or math teachers have set up that you can do a share?
In the future, yes, because we're building the ability for not only teachers to share with others for free, but we're also building it as an avenue for, let's say you have very specialized content and you want to use it as a vehicle for selling, then you can sell it to put it on the market for a buck, something like that. All right, so let's back to the feedback. So here we go. So we say, okay, you did do very well on this concept here, so you've only achieved a novice level. You've achieved apprentice level of mastery here, and then a scholar level of mastery on these 3 pages. So now the student has instant feedback based on this, and they know where they need to focus on. In fact, as a tutor, I'm going to say, I'm going to remove these pages temporarily, so you don't have to focus on those. You've already demonstrated that you know this information, and just focus on these now. And then, so you go study it again, and then I'll say to you, all right, come back to me when you feel prepared for another knowledge check. So when the student comes back and they say, okay, I'm ready, they go for another knowledge check, and then I'm going to ask the student more questions. Now, the key is, it's not the same questions, okay? That's the important thing. It's not the same questions. In fact, we built an artificial intelligence. So not only does the tutor give us information, but the tutor is intelligent, okay? The tutor knows and starts to understand different things. So I'm going to pull up this test tool here. And what you can see here is like this is basically the tutor's brain. So the very first page of content was foodborne illness that we put in here. Here we have a lot of questions. You know, we have remembers, understands, no applies yet. We even have one here in Japanese. True, false, multiple choice questions. So the way that it's affected is that not a few questions per topic. You want a lot of questions. We are employing a style called abundant assessments so that we could employ a theory called item response theory. I don't know if anyone's heard of that before, but it's a way to test the student's aptitude. Okay, so what's happening is the tutor knows that, let's say this tutor has been around and it has asked this, about 1,000 students this question. So I know that after I've asked 1,000 students this question, 80% of them get that correct. So to me, I think to myself, that's a fairly easy question, so I'm going to ask it less often. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I don't know what the question is. I just know that the result is people are getting it. Where this one here, let's say 40% of them get it correctly the first time. So thereby, I think it's a little harder question. So I'm going to ask that more often, if not the first time. Because if I ask that the first time and the student gets it, they're beating the odds, and therefore I could kind of gauge that this student has a good understanding of that information because they got that question correctly. So as a tutor, I'm coming through here, I'm going to pick this question here because this is a harder one, this question, and this question, really hard. And then I'm going to go down here to this next one, I'm going to pick this question, this question, this question, and then I derive that first test from all the content areas based on my understanding of how the results are. So the very first time you run in the system, the tutor will be fairly dumb. Okay, he won't know, he won't have any experience. It'll be like, okay, I'm only going to pick questions based on my understanding of the Bloom's taxonomy that you've assigned it, so that kind of weights in the value, and also the language of the text. So we actually do a language analysis on the text to kind of gauge, okay, is this a more difficult question? Is it very simple language? And then we can basically kind of measure it that way. So the tutor gets smarter over time. So as the students go through it, they go through the knowledge check, and we'll start to give them the right proper questions. So let's say they didn't get the knowledge check the first time, then we'll go back to the slightly easier question, because now we're taking them through learning through a remediation process. We don't want to fault the kids who get it right the first time, so that we're taking them through another boring process. The ones that have proved themselves, they can move on. Whereas the kids who need the extra remediation, then we start that process, so they need like 2, 3, 4, 5 times to be able to turn all these colors from red, orange to green. So the emphasis is to build their confidence, because this is a snapshot of their brain. So if I look at this and I walk into the test tomorrow, I'm probably going to fail this. I'm going to do well with this. I now know where I'm at, and that's really awesome, powerful feedback. I saw a hand go up.
So you don't. I love this, and you don't use this for any sort of scoring. This is just for their
This
practice.
is formative, completely formative, and not summative. Now, we do have tools in here to create summative exams. So actually, that's a great question. Let me go into a segue here into reporting. So as a teacher, get rid of our...
Can I ask a question before you move into this?
Oh, yes.
On the last screen, is that student specific or class specific? Because you said it made decisions based on which question was answered.
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me when I hand out a test, students aren't all getting the same concept questions?
Exactly. It's student specific, how they perform on their current mastery set and also their past behavior as well.
Okay.
All right, so this is like a reporting screen. So you can see here, through the various modules that are presented here, we have knife knowledge, herbs and spices, and then we scroll down here and you can see like red indicators, meaning that the student hasn't mastered it. Let's go here. This student here has gone through it 24 times through the remediation process, so maybe we need to go talk to that student. Or I know that the student's an IEP student, so they need the repetition to be able to learn. Because the way we think about it is like, if they're not getting it the first time through repetition, they're still learning and they're still going through that process. So it's a win-win in that case. So this case, like this student 4 times hasn't mastered it. So that's just like one very powerful tool. Other tools as a teacher is like, we provide class averages. So within the cooking techniques module, you can see that the class is averaging apprentice level. If you see any reds here, that means that the class is averaging novice level, which is not good. And if you go into a specific module, this is in the module view now, we have here feedback on each individual concept. So you can see class averages. So if most of your students aren't getting cooking methods, then this will show up red. And then then you'll be like, okay, special lecture time, class isn't getting it, let's go take care of that. Now, the other symbols that you're seeing here, just briefly, M stands for mastery, A stands for advanced. So this is just telling you as a teacher, this is considered a mastery page. So the tutor's telling you, I think this is a mastery page because there's questions in it, and I think it's advanced because the kids, they're not getting it right off the bat. So they're taking their time to get through that content. Where this one, I think it's basic because they're going to it and they get it all right the first time. So I think it's very simple. So that's more of the intelligence kind of feeding back to you. R just stands for resource. That means that the pages there aren't necessarily qualified for mastery. It's just an informational page resource, such as you put an activity in there or a worksheet or something that doesn't involve knowledge acquisition or testing. So it doesn't require that level of feedback. So yes.
What was the term you gave that to that intelligence?
Oh, item response theory.
Item response.
IRT, yes. Yeah, if you want to look it up, it's some really amazing. And actually, it was created back in the 70s and 80s. They were using punch cards back then. So but the thing is, like, they couldn't handle the load with the technology at the time, and then so we're bringing it back to today. So yes.
Okay, so just say you did try to do this and like make notes or do something so your students can read it at home and come back to class knowing what they're supposed to do. Can they pull this up using their smartphone or?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't just have to have like a laptop or
No. Well, a lot of it depends on what kind of material you put in. So you have to use cloud-based materials. So things that you have to play around, and I'm going to show you some tools that we're going to be using. But you'll be using other people's technology, like Google. Google Docs is a really good one that works well on smartphones and iPads and things like that. Because the beauty of this entire process is, other people specialize in video delivery, such as YouTube, Vimeo, and all these things. So we're not going to invent a new video player for ourselves. And so we piggyback off of their technology. SlideShare is a great PowerPoint slide program. So basically, to conclude this part here, because I don't want to spend too much time on it, I just want to show you one last piece of technology. So you have the ability to create summative exams. So here's this module, and I have all these questions here. So I can come in here as a teacher and kind of pick the questions I want. Here's an essay question. Essay questions are included because you want it to be part of your tool set. But the tutor is not smart enough to grade essay questions yet. Okay, so there we go. So you pick questions, and then you can create a summative exam, which is a very fixed test. Or you can come over here to Bloom's taxonomy slider thingy, and you can pick, like, I want to pick 50 random questions from Remember. So you can see down here we have 50 questions selected. Then we come back up here. We can save the selection to one of these save spots. And then let's go ahead and, oops, I just went and undid what I just did. So then it creates a randomized version of that selection. So back to cooking techniques, back to test tool, and then let's pick one. Printer friendly. And the cool thing about this is since I saved that selection, I go back to that same selection again, and I hit the test tool, and it'll create a second randomization. So you got test A and test B, so you can kind of alternate between the two students. There we go, another randomization. In fact, multiple choice questions get randomized too, so that's really cool. And then here's the last thing is that's really goes into kind of like what I call the Star Trek angle of things. I love Star Trek, by the way. We actually have tools in here that allow us to predict the future. Ooh, right? Yeah.
And this is free, right?
Yeah, the tool is free.
Really?
Yeah.
The tool is free.
Yeah. Because I make money other ways. Yeah. Don't worry, we're actually forming partnerships with publishers because they're putting their content in our tool set now. So, because like I'm saying, ebooks suck. Ebooks is just like a reinvention of the same old methodology, and this doesn't work. It creates disconnect. Sure, you can search, sure, it saves your back, but it's not a reinvention and it's a disruption of the technology. So here we go. So think of it this way. Anybody here shop at Amazon? All right, great. You know Amazon tells you what you want to buy. It's like you have your own personal shopper. So it knows gives you suggestions, knows what you like, knows what other people like that are similar to you, so therefore, it knows this information. So Amazon's collecting all this data about you and your behavior, your shopping behavior, so that it could do these what we call big data analytics and predictive analytics. So, same thing with Google. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to employ that same technology that's used by companies to get you to spend money to do that in education. Because we're tracking data on a granular level, as far as this is concerned, we actually can build a personal learning profile for the student. So for example, I'm the tutor, and I'm hovering over you, watching you look at that page. Okay, you've gone idle, right, that counts against you. and then I know where your mouse is moving, I know what you're clicking on. You click on a particular interactive or something like that. I understand how you're learning, when you're learning, what you're looking at. I don't know the content, I don't care about the content, I just care about the actions. So I know that you're doing these various things. So because of that, I could query the tutor and say, hey tutor, if I give these questions that I selected down here to my class at this very second, how would they perform? And the tutor say, well, based on my understanding of the students and how they answered questions and what they're doing, I'm going to run a few quick algorithms in my head, and I'm going to give you my best guess. I'm going to give you the grade that the student will get and the level of certainty I have for them achieving that grade. Now that's what I call a Star Trek moment. Because, thank you. I got a golf clap, there we go. But the truth of it is, in education, we haven't really had a chance to tap into that technology that everyone else is doing. There are pioneering people out there doing stuff like this, but we've done it because we've worked with content and we understand the relationship between content and outcome. We're not just building an outcome-based system. So this is actually being used, in the past 2 years, actually, first off in culinary arts, now in other fields that our partners are doing. We're getting towards about 70 to 80% accuracy on our guesses, which is phenomenal because we kind of just went, all right, this is a theory, let's see how it goes. and it's actually proving itself to be really awesome and working. And then, so we're actually going into corporate training solutions. So now corporations are saying, hey, you need to learn this. And oh, by the way, now we're tracking it if you're actually really learning it. So if you get that certificate, it's going to really mean something, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, I saw a hand go up.
So one of the questions I know my principal, just knowing my principal, will probably ask me is what happens with the data? Is the students' data that they're plugging, does that get stored somewhere?
It gets stored in the cloud. If you're concerned about FERPA, we're not capturing any personal data information. They're just objects to us. So we don't know their social security number, we don't know any detail about them, and the fact that we're not grading them in a summative fashion, this is not a grade book. So this is an important distinction because that's one of the things that we want to try to stay away from. What time is it? Oh, time up, sorry. So anyway, gosh, I'm sorry, I kind of went a little too far into this. But the thing is, if you want to add stuff, let me just show you 2 quick things that you can do. All right, I'm in this module, and I want to come over here. I go to Manage Content, and the key is easy. Just like Trello, we want to make it easy. All right, so I want to add a website. So here, I click on Add Link. I come over here to, let's see here. Oh, here's a website that I picked up, troubleshooting a car that will start. Copy that link. I come over here, I paste this in here. I name it, and then I hit create. And then now it shows up at the bottom of the page. There's I can move it now to the position I want. Let's move it up to here because we're trying to craft the learning experience for the student. I go over here, and then let's go to the previous pages. So here's a PowerPoint slide that's in the cloud. Let me go here to the next one. Page from SlideRocket, then a website from Arizona Department of Health. And then where's the one I just pulled up? Here we go. Juhu. And then you can see that now the information is in here. I come over here, I put questions editor, I hit the new questions button, and I come over here, I hit, okay, here's a question, I'm going to classify it as true or false. Yeah, that's good. What's that? Math. Yeah, so there's actually, I give instructions on you pull copy math. Yes. And then boom, there's the question. You have to have 4 more questions and then it works. It works. So what do y'all think about that? Yay! I hope it was a really good demonstration, and I really hope you go and start flipping the classroom. And the sign-up sheet, I'll email you and give you instructions on how to sign up for this. It's not open to the public. It's only private to people I've actually talked to in real life.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.